All right, so reports have come out that the Spurs are De'Aaron Fox's preferred destination if he is traded before the trade deadline. Now, as this report from Sam Amick from The Athletic, very reputable NBA guy, says, it sounds as though De'Aaron Fox will probably be moved, and his preferred destination is San Antonio, but his side remains open to all destinations. With that being said, in this video, I want to explore further the concept of De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, what that type of trade would look like, and what that would do for the San Antonio Spurs, because oh my gosh, I love the fit. It is one of the teams that I thought was a best fit for De'Aaron Fox when I first discussed the possibility of him getting traded a couple months ago when the Kings were really struggling. And I didn't really expect with the improvement that they had made as of late under Doug Christie that would happen. But it looks as though De'Aaron Fox is probably, maybe not probably, but definitely has a serious chance of getting traded before the deadline. And if he goes to San Antonio, that might be the perfect fit. I mean, I think San Antonio and Houston are the two best fits for De'Aaron Fox in terms of building a really good championship contender. And Houston has a team that I don't think they really want to mess with all that much, despite the fact I kind of think they should. Whereas San Antonio, look, Chris Paul's been awesome for Wemby. De'Aaron Fox is a different level of player entirely at this point in his career, and I think that would make them terrifying, like now. And I just want to break it down more in this video. So first things first, let's talk about the standings. The Spurs, as of right now, are 2.5 games out of the play-in, having played 43 games, which means they have 39 left. If De'Aaron Fox were to get traded in the next week, within the next 3 or 4 games, they could easily be looking at 35 or so games left, with a 3-game or so deficit to the play-in and a real opportunity to get to the play-in. That's not a very big deficit with that much time left, especially since a Kings trade would pretty much, in all honesty, be them kind of waving the white flag on their season and on this core in a lot of ways. And so I think, first of all, De'Aaron Fox would just actively make them better than the Kings and the Warriors, so they would quickly become the favorites for that 10 seed in the West, regardless of anything else. And I can promise you this, a team with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama is not a team that any Western Conference team wants to see in the play-in or in the first round of the playoffs, which also feels like a very real possibility if they were to get this trade done. The Spurs, to this point in the season, are not great. Wemby is great. He is having an incredible year. Now the shooting's fallen off just slightly lately after it was over 40% for quite a while after a rough start to the season. First 8 games are not good. Since then, Wemby's been awesome shooting the ball as a whole, though. He's averaging a 24.11 rebound double-double, almost 4 assists a game and almost 4 blocks a game as well, which is ridiculous. He's the best defensive player in the sport. And offensively, he is incredible. And the honest truth is he doesn't have a co-star. Like, Devin Vassell is a decent player who's had a solid year, 38% from 3, but isn't a star by any means. Chris Paul has been effective, 36% on almost 5 attempts a game from 3. He's been pretty efficient from 2-point range, although very low volume. He can't really beat defenders off the dribble anymore. He doesn't have the speed and explosiveness whatsoever that he used to in his game, which is understandable. He's 39 years old. A guy like his size, who was so reliant on speed for much of his career in certain ways, was obviously going to regress a bit. But he's been great. He's averaging 9 and 8, and his assist turnover ratio is incredible. He would be a monstrous backup point guard for this team. And look, I understand he probably would not love that shift, but I think he would accept it, especially since he and Pop seem like they have a really good relationship. Talking about how he and Pop have been having consistent conversation and communication even since Pop left the team with his mild stroke, which again, prayers up to Pop. Hope he's getting better. Hope he is able to come back and coach the Spurs at some point. But again, this is a team, I mean, Harrison Barnes shooting 41% from 3. Jeremy Sochan is showing real growth and promise this year, averaging 13 and 8, or actually, yeah, about 13 and 8, and doing it pretty efficiently. Decent playmaker as well, although the assist turnover ratio isn't great. Julian Champagne's shooting 37% from 3 on 6.5 attempts a game, having the best year of his career. Stephon Castle looks like a real promising rookie guard, but probably not point guard at this point in his career. Now, he's not an elite level shooter, but while he does have real playmaking ability, he has the size and defensive capability to complement De'Aaron Fox and play together at a very high level. My biggest concern, in all honesty, with the Spurs would be the lack of shooting of a perceived starting lineup of Stephon Castle, well, De'Aaron Fox the 1, Stephon Castle at the 2, Vassell at the 3, probably Sochan at the 4, and Wemby at the 5, and then you have Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, and Chris Paul as fillers as well. Now, Keldon Johnson very well might be included in this deal, and I have a prospective deal that I put together. There's lots of different ways a deal could work between these two teams, but I do have a prospective deal that I talked about here in just a second. Either way, I do think that the Spurs could probably keep the majority of their core. Now, would they need a little bit more shooting? Sure, it probably wouldn't hurt. But I think they could figure out a way to make it work. And I think this is a situation where long term, I mean, De'Aaron Fox only has one more year on his contract after this year, could easily be signed to a max level extension, or maybe he's eligible for, I'm not certain if he's eligible for a super max, but if he isn't, good chance he will be by that point. And he might be anyway. And I mean, I just think adding a guy to the lineup who's one of the most clutch players in basketball, is elite in the mid-range and getting downhill, incredible off the dribble, and had his best shooting season of his career last year. Yes, he's been down from 3 this year, but adding a superstar caliber player next to Victor Wembanyama immediately make the Spurs one of the most dangerous teams in the Western Conference. And the most valuable thing that the Spurs have going for them in terms of the ability to make a De'Aaron Fox trade is the amount of draft assets they have. An unprotected 25 Atlanta first, their own 25 first. In fact, they have not traded away a single one of their draft picks for the next, well, out of every draft pick that is currently tradable. They own every single asset. So they have a top 10 protected Chicago pick this year that probably will go to Chicago. So I don't really know exactly what that's going to look like, because I think Chicago will probably keep that. A top 14 protected Charlotte pick that they will keep. I don't know what the conditions are on that deal, because it doesn't say here in terms of if they get those picks next year, what the conditions change to, basically, if they don't convey this year, because they probably won't. But they have all their own second round picks. They have a bunch of extra second round picks. They have a pick swap right in 26 with Atlanta. In 27, they have Atlanta's unprotected pick again. They got like 3 extra second round picks in 2026. They have another extra 28 pick here, probably from Boston or whatever. I'm not going to read all this, but again, another extra pick in 28. A bunch of extra seconds in 28, their own 29 first, a couple of 2030 firsts, 2 or 3 31 firsts. I mean, good Lord. Like, I guess they have pick swap rights at 31, so it's only 2 31 picks, but still, point being, they have so many draft assets. And that allows them to put together a deal that would be hard for other teams to match, especially other teams that would be interested in De'Aaron Fox, especially if he wants to go to San Antonio. So the deal that I put together is Keldon Johnson, who's got 2 more years on his deal after this year, and then Trey Jones, who's a $9 million expiring contract plus 3 first-round picks. I did Atlanta's first this year, as well as San Antonio's first in 27 and 29, unprotected, for De'Aaron Fox. That deal works on both sides, and that's the type of deal that, for example, if the Kings were like, nope, we need another first-round pick, look at all the other assets that the Spurs still have to offer in terms of regular picks and pick swaps. They also do have the ability to potentially trade if the Spurs were, or if the Kings were interested in somebody like a Malachi Branham, somebody younger with maybe a little bit more potential. I don't know. Maybe they think Blake Wesley can turn into something. Charles Bassey, guys like that could also be included in this type of deal. They don't have ridiculous amounts of young talent in terms of like super exciting young pieces for the Kings, but what they don't have in young talent and exciting pieces, they make up for in draft assets. And therefore, I think there's a very realistic path to this deal working, whether it looks exactly like this or not. The framework of the deal is totally logical, without the Spurs really impacting their rotation too much, because again, De'Aaron Fox comes in, moves Chris Paul to the bench. You don't need Trey Jones at all anymore. Losing Keldon Johnson's frustrating, but again, you have plenty of wings in Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sohan, Julian Champagnie, even Malachi Branham if he stays on the team, other guys like that. Like, I think they would be fine on the wings as well. There is so much potential here for a De'Aaron Fox Victor Wembanyama swap, and it is the type of trade that would, or sorry, not De'Aaron Fox Victor Wembanyama swap, but a trade for the Spurs to add De'Aaron Fox to Victor Wembanyama. And this is the type of move that would make the potential of a real serious contender, one of the most fun teams in basketball for the foreseeable future. It's a duo that would be one of the most exciting duos in basketball. And honestly, despite being a Mavs fan and knowing that if De'Aaron Fox goes to the Spurs, it makes the Western Conference even harder, as a basketball fan, I hope it happens, because this would be a blast to watch on a night in, night out basis. Quickly make the Spurs one of the most exciting and fun teams in all of basketball. And I mean, right at the top of that list. So I hope it happens, honestly. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.